Welcome back to another video, guys. It's your boy Wraith Hoops. So today we're going to be talking about Jordan Poole. The most interesting thing that we're going to see this upcoming season is how things play out with that roster. Now, admittedly, we know that Russell Westbrook went there recently while Bradley Beal was there, of course, and you did see CP3 get traded there before he was eventually traded for Jordan Poole. Now, with Jordan Poole being on that roster, he's going to have a lot more flexibility and a lot more opportunity to get things done his own way. With the Warriors, obviously, he came off the bench. He did start a fair number of games last season, but his splits were not exactly the most ideal considering what we know him to be, but he's always been more of a hot, cold, streaky player. Now, last season, he did end up playing 30 minutes a game. He played in all 82 games for the Warriors, averaged 20.5 points, shooting 43% from the field and 33.5% from the three-point line, which was a slight reduction off roughly the same number of threes when he shot 36.5% the previous season and 45% from the field the season before. He did up his assists from 4 to 4.5, and his rebounds went down from 3.5 down to almost 3. On the defensive side of the ball, he was the same player he always was with the Warriors. He did suffer, I believe, a certain level of mental strain with the whole Draymond situation, and he's ready to get that behind him. And I completely understand, because as a young player, he was supposed to be the third Splash Brother, some people thought, because of his just knack for hitting shots that most people just either aren't willing to take, don't have the green light to take, or don't have the guts and grit to shoot.
It's Golden State. Pull wide open, and down it goes.
He was fearless in a way that some people might consider to be annoying, to be quite honest, because there would be a lot of times where he would take a shot last season and it would miss, and you'd be like, why did you take that shot? Now, admittedly, overall, he hasn't been the stellar person so far from a facial recognition standpoint for the Washington Wizards, because in every single press conference it seems to us that they always catch him lacking. They always catch him with a frown on his face or just sitting there straight face. I don't think he's necessarily unhappy. I think he's fatigued mentally and physically. Now, he has been putting in a lot of work over the offseason to improve his game, to get better at his craft, and I believe that removing himself from the situation with the Warriors allows him to grow instead of as Curry and Clay's younger brother, their eventual replacement on the team as that next young superstar for a roster, to be more of Jordan Poole. And him being able to be on a roster, obviously, that's rebuilding, that hasn't found much success besides last season when they had Kristaps and Kyle Kuzma, and now they traded away Kristaps, admittedly to a team in the Boston Celtics that needed that center to replace Al Horford. But now you just have Kuzma, who ended up wanting $30 million. He did give them 21 points, shooting 45% from the floor, 33% from the three-point line. He also gave him 7 rebounds and roughly 4 assists. He wasn't stellar defensively, but he was good enough to prove that, hey, I'm a solid player. Obviously, we remember when he was with the Lakers, and at his peak with his powers, he did end up averaging 18.5 points, shooting 46% from the field. But that was in the 1920 season. Then you had the whole LeBron saga, and LeBron obviously still being there now. Eventually, he fell out of favor. He wasn't shooting particularly well, and people just didn't love him as a piece on that roster. He just seemed to be expendable at a certain extent, which was understandable because he did have his fair share of lackluster games, despite overall, hindsight 2020, not being that poor. Now, in his last season, he did average 13 points before getting traded to the Wizards and averaging 17 points for them the first year before jumping. We know Jordan Poole's an extremely healthy player. Kyle Kuzma, on the other hand, while generally healthy, tends to have his little bits and pieces of injuries. That's not a problem, but that also probably played in the fact that he got $25 million instead of $30 million. Now, $25 million, I'm not going to say is an overpay and underpay. I feel like it's just right for his total value, considering what his game entails. And I think he's actually going to play very well alongside Jordan Poole, because their games, to a certain extent, complement each other. Not necessarily in a pick and roll kind of way, though they could potentially run that sort of thing. I just don't expect the Wizards to be a particularly good team. They're not necessarily a dumpster fire of an organization, I'm not ready to say, but nobody expects them to make the playoffs, much less win a playoff game. So when you're in that sort of NBA purgatory kind of realm, there's only but so much that people expect you to do. Now, they have made a couple trades. As I said before, you had the one with Kristaps Porzingis. Admittedly, the most notable piece that they've gotten this offseason was Tyus Jones. And I do love him as a player. I believe that he's going to have the opportunity to flourish, and given more minutes and more opportunities as a starting point guard, he's going to show out. And do I think he's going to be all-star caliber? Probably not this season, but I think we're going to see just truly what type of player he is. With Tyus Jones at the 1, Jordan Poole running the 2, Corey Kispert at the small forward spot, Kyle Kuzma obviously at the power forward, and then Daniel Gafford at the center. This lineup does not scare you, especially if you're a contending team. If you're a strong playoff team, it also doesn't really worry you that much, particularly in the regular season. In their second unit, they do have Delon Wright, Landry Shamet, they have Colbale, they have Mike Muscala, and there's also Danilo Gallinari, along with Denny. Okay depth pieces. They're not particularly super helpful to have on a roster. Not to say that they're bad NBA players, but they're just not expected to be anything above just on a roster. Now, with that being said, I do expect that Jordan Poole will see an increase in his numbers, an increase in productivity and efficiency, which is going to be big for him because even his free throw percentage dropped by, I believe, 4% this past offseason, going from like 91 to 87, which might seem minuscule, but it is a good indicator of how you are going to shoot from longer range shots when the game is actually going and the juices are flowing. Now, I don't expect the Wizards, like I said, to make the playoffs, but I do expect them to be a solid team somewhere around the 10th, 11th seed. Maybe they'll see a play-in game. Maybe they will decide that they're just going to go ahead and tank and hope for a good piece in this upcoming draft to kind of complete things. But with that being said, good morning, good evening, good night. No matter where you are on the globe watching, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to this video. Tell me your thoughts about the Jordan Poole trade. Whether you guys think that he'll take a leap this season or fall through the floor. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.